Many who style themselves as Christians do a similar thing. They share what they believe are wise sayings. Communities, in fact, tend to develop special individual vocabularies of such seemingly wise sentiments, which everyone is socially encouraged, and perhaps pressured, to accept as true. From an objective point of view of the intimacy of soul life, we have to characterize such wise sayings as mere sentimental platitudes. The world has been, especially through its fascination with Eastern cultural thought, occupied with these sentiments, which speak of kindness and love and oneness and such, as if by having such thoughts in the soul one has attained a kind of renewed spiritual grace. This is not so, but rather is a kind of horrible illusion that is suffocating the individual human spirit in a kind of self-saving, self-satisfying pretense that has been aptly recognized when one remembers this phrase from Western culture: "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." These sentimental platitudes, these seemingly good thoughts, which often give us a nice warm feeling about ourselves, are a trap for the spirit. The nature of the trap in the good intentions that pave the road to hell is that we can then believe, because our soul occupies itself with nice warm platitudes on a daily basis, that we have accomplished something in the realm of the spiritual. This is not so unless we take hold of that warm thought in such a way that our will becomes different. True spiritual development has little to do with the content of the mind as an aspect of soul life by itself, without the good thought causing us to activate the will in such a way that we start to change our way of life down to its most intimate core. Well, our will can cause a change in the cognitive process itself, such that we learn to produce our own wisdom, no longer needing to immerse the soul in a sea of borrowed sentimental platitudes. The crucial matter is the change of the will itself by the will itself. This will is in fact the higher element of our spirit, and as long as we let it slumber in the warm bed of sentimental thoughts, it will not wake to any of the soul's true potential spiritual capacities. In the light of these thoughts, let us now consider more carefully: "The one coming after me, I'm not big enough to carry his sandals. While I baptize you in the waters of repentance, he will baptize you in holy breath and fire." Most of us acquire our picture of the world in a mediated fashion. We don't experience it directly, but through the actions and communications of some other source. World news, for example, we get through news sources. We in fact call these sources media. We also get news of a sort about our family or our workplace through others. We are given stories, which often are not so much truthful, but rather gossip. The storyteller frequently has an agenda. From these mediated sources we construct inwardly in our own consciousness pictures of the meaning of the world. In greater or lesser degrees, this constructed inward collection of mental pictures is flawed, for both the storyteller and our own biases infect the qualitative nature of this inner understanding, all beam and little mote. This process of meaning creation begins in our childhood and continues through the rest of our lives. Some aspects are more formal, such as are created by what we call education, and as well by that which we may or may not be taught through religious sources. We swim in a sea of stories of the meaning of the world, and by reflection, the meaning of ourselves. In the present, it has become particularly important to human beings to determine for themselves this meaning of existence. We rebel against the control of our thoughts, although paradoxically we often feel so incapable that we turn to others in such a way as to give them power over our own thoughts. We do this whenever we succumb to a talking head on cable television, or the rantings of a preacher in our church, or the ideas of the priests of natural science. Anywhere we feel the lack of personal or individual capacity, we are prone to surrender to others the creation of the mental pictures we hold regarding the reality of our own experience. We let others tell us what our own experience is supposed to mean. Basically, we are then not very awake to the fundamental questions regarding this meaning creation process. All the same, certain characteristics of the world can be observed. Each biography has a outward set of circumstances unique to it, and is as well inwardly individual and unique. While we all, as human beings, have consciousness, soul, and self-consciousness, spirit, the content of these are unique to our individuality. That certain aspects of what calls itself natural science tend to think of our physical biology, and as determinative of all this, that idea is itself a modern worldview mediated by dominant aspects of the culture of natural science, which it would unjustly impose on our free understanding. If we survey the world carefully, without bias, we see many different languages and cultures and social historical circumstances. One person grows up in South LA, becomes a gang member, and dies young. Another grows up street poor in Bombay, finds a way to obtain an education of sorts, and ends up working as a telephone clerk, serving Western businesses, all the while raising a family. I could go on, but the important point is to recognize that each individual throughout the whole wide world also lives within a unique set of social, cultural, political circumstances. Yes, there are many similarities, but once we get into the details, these assumed similarities fail to encompass the true nature of the totality of any individual biography.